Welcome, everyone, to the official debate section.
I'm Kristen Welker of NBC News, and I welcome you. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor.
So we have to keep those health and safety protocols in effect, guys. How are you? Welcome.
I feel both healthy and safe.
Awesome. How are you, Blue?
I'm doing okay. I accidentally didn't sleep last night, but for like 2.5 hours. So it's been a long 36 hours.
I'll bet. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Very little sleep going on in this house too. We've got just things going on early morning, whether we have to go to work or not. It's just how things go. And we are going to be just fine regardless. As you can see, folks, Jake's not with us just yet. I don't know if he's got some childcare issues going on, but sometimes that takes precedent, or not sometimes, every time that takes precedent. But tonight's topic, as you saw on the intro, is, are remixes good for entertainment? So Blue, maybe you can help set us up as far as what the sides might be.
Okay. Remixes, as defined for me, was, and I haven't scrolled back to double check this, sorry, but it is where you take bits and pieces of other stories and media projects and whatnot and put them together into something almost entirely new. You might be a new property. I don't want to overcharacterize it right now because you guys recharacterizing what it means might be part of you two debating. So are these good for entertainment? There's going to be a yes and a no, obviously. and in what I would say, I want you guys to bring in good in what way. Hi, Felix. How you doing?
What do we got? Oh, yeah. Let's say hi to the folks in the chat. So we had Corey, who was first. I think that's the first time anybody's claimed to be first on our show. So that's pretty cool. We have SmilingBandito on the panel and in the chat, as well as Blue Samurai Zero in both of those roles. And then, as he mentioned, Felix is here. And hey, dropping the links. Awesome. He is the link master. Glad you could be here, Felix. And for those of you watching on the replay, we appreciate you as well. Lots going on tonight, too. So we appreciate you if you're here. So the debate, the question, I'll be honest here, this is sort of a little bit of transparency. Question Bandito came up with. So it seems like we should let Bandito choose which side he wants to be on.
Sounds like a plan. I just remember there was something I was going to reference, so I was just taking a quick look for it, but can't find it, so I guess we just move forward. So yeah, the remixes. I mean, we look at shows like that get panned for doing this, like Avatar. It has taken things like Pocahontas, Dances with Wolves, and Fern Gully, and remixes it in enough ways to, have its own title, but ultimately ends up being the exact same story. We have other examples like Seven Samurai and why can't I think of the Western title that was based
Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, thank you. And so we have other titles like that that are hailed as being achievements. So, this idea of taking old stories, remixing it enough that it's still the old story, but given a new skin.
Now, I believe Magnificent Seven was just a Western remake rather than a remix, but putting those two together, we still can get something else out of a new movie. And if you think of one that's like that, let me know, because I know somebody did that already. I just can't remember the title. So. Yeah,
for sure. And it is, so I'm loosely creating this category of a remix based on the old story. And of course it was a book before Seven Samurai, but the idea that the previous theme, being Japanese samurai, is now mixed with being a Western. So even if it's the same story, it's still mixed with a new theme.
Okay, so that means Dojo, you're going to be taking the negative position. Is that right, Bandito? You're on positive.
Yeah, I'm totally for it.
Okay. I was going to
Dojo,
say,
you're taking the negative position that these are not good for entertainment. How dare you be negative? Explain thyself.
right. Yeah. I was.
Yeah, why you got to be
wondering-
like that, Dojo?
I was kind of wondering, Bandito, if in fact you were saying that it was a good thing that they were so similar to the original story. And we touched on this a little bit with have all the stories already been written. And so, yeah, are remixes necessary if the answer to that question is no? If the stories haven't all been written, remixes taking these elements from things that have already been done, things that have been maybe done ad nauseum, and trying it again seems like, I think that, it's stifled creativity or kind of lazy, actually, if you're going to take Fern Gully and Pocahontas and what was your third example?
Dances with Wolves.
Dances with Wolves. Yes. Okay. I actually did not see that yet. I saw the two cartoons.
Okay, we won't spoil it for you, but
Okay.
it's just like Avatar.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah,
Just take Lost in Space away from Avatar, and you kind of get Dances with Wolves.
Oh, okay. So see, even you could even take part of Lost in Space and say that there's a similarity there in Avatar. That makes it sound to me like he's grabbing ideas from all these other places and not coming up with his own.
But how is
Okay.
that bad for entertainment?
So I will simply jump in and say I think that's a good thing for entertainment. And certain movies, more than just Avatar, have done this. The Matrix was like that. They borrowed heavily from Akira and Ghost in the Shell and things like Shadowrun and other IPs that were around during that time.
In the Bible.
The cyberpunk. Well, and I think when they are, I don't know, and you can say from the Bible, but I think some of those stories, it wasn't like a direct retelling of stuff from the Bible, right? They were using that imagery. I don't know. Is that a separate category? Allegory and that imagery. But I don't know. That might be a little bit of a separate category too.
But on the set for the Matrix, I don't know where you found that list that they claim to borrow from, just because I haven't looked. But I'm sure you can find a making of where they say, "Hey, we borrowed from all this." But I do remember seeing interviews in a making of where they talked about having Derridads? I'm getting the philosopher's name incorrect. Sorry, but it's simulant and simulacrum. It's basically it's a forced postmodernism that everybody in the cast had to read. As part of going over the script, they had to learn postmodernist philosophy to make the Matrix.
And that book was actually even, I think, in the movie itself. Isn't that the book that when he opens up, when the guy comes for the piece of software?
Oh yeah.
And it's that book, right? I think if I'm remembering that right.
I think
yeah. So there was a lot that they borrowed from in order to make that movie, and I think certain times when you see philosophy being pulled in. I don't know if that's actually remixing. I don't know if I would consider that to be remixing, because we have to borrow from certain themes because that's how we relate to our audience, right? So, but when it comes to directly, I think pulling stories directly from certain things, the setup for the Matrix is very similar to things like Ghost in the Shell, where it's like how much of the person is in the machine and how much is or in the computer and how much is the person human instead, right? And with Avatar, it's a much more direct approach, especially when you think about like Fern Gully. The idea being that this person who is a part of the enemy is there to cut down the trees, ends up literally being taken into a much smaller version of his world and joining the hero's side of the quest, and comes back in order to defeat the villain, himself, right? That is Avatar, 100%. The thing about it, though, is does every 40-year-old want to watch Ferngully? Right? So, like, the idea of these stories should only exist as the Western drama Dances with Wolves is kind of a limited view on things. And some stories do better as once they kind of go into a new telling. So, like, not everyone has seen Seven Samurai.
Mm-hmm.
Much smaller audience, but a much larger audience got to see
Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven. And, you know, not everybody has seen or knows of Ghost in the Shell or Metropolis or Neuromancer, which are all inspirations for The Matrix. But of course, everyone's seen The Matrix. And at the time, I mean, Matrix was a triumph of cinema. So now, do we allow for those stories that, you know, might not get seen by everybody? Do we allow those stories to kind of sit in their corner collecting dust? Or do we reimagine them, put them in a new setting, and put that out for the new audience?
That might be the key right there. Not flipping sides here, but the fact that you're talking about...
I win!
The fact that you're talking about a new setting might make all the difference.
Okay.
And hang on.
I win! There is no rebuttal.
But, you know, maybe...
I completely concede the point.
See, so... what I was going to say is, yeah, the example you're giving is that, you know, Dances with Wolves was in a Western setting. Avatar, obviously, even if it's got similarities, is in a vastly different setting. And one of the things I was thinking about before coming to the show is other kinds of remixes that we're talking about, that we haven't yet talked about. And that is with music, which is sort of my wheelhouse. Aretha Franklin had a song called Until You Come Back to Me, That's What I'm Gonna Do. And Basha did a remix of that song. So it wasn't homage. She didn't like cover the song. They did a remix of it. And it was also a really big hit. So here's the thing though. Is that lazy to take a song that was a big hit for an iconic singer and then do it yourself with, you know, a different beat behind it and all that? And that's kind of what we're talking about as far as movies go. And I think this would go into any kind of media, really, because we see that kind of thing happening in our very familiar realm of comic books, where the stories are ones that have been told before, but now they're maybe a new setting. It's an archetype of a character, and you know, it's a very similar story, because how many origins can there really be?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that means then that they'll be considered rip-offs by anybody who wants to be a detractor. This has been happening recently to some folks in the indie comic realm, I'll call it. I don't want to call out any names because I don't want this to become that. But, you know, it's been happening a lot lately where, you know, they're considered rip-offs. And I think, while I disagree mostly that they're rip-offs, I think it's harming the indie industry then, if that's how they're becoming viewed, because people aren't considered to be making their own thing.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not switching sides here, but there is a part of this too that dips into how much is lifted and how much is people have come up with their own ideas that are similar and not have seen the original. Because I think when we're looking at some of those IPs that people are believing to be copied or lifted from other stuff, at best, I think we can only kind of have, like, it's conjecture to say that it is or isn't, because we don't really know with a lot of that stuff. But I mean, when we look at cinema and we look at Avatar, it's still, I mean, it's still conjecture with that specifically, but others do say, you know, this is the homage that we're working from, such as The Matrix. The Wachowskis did say that they were challenged. So I mean, The Matrix came about because they were challenged by a friend of theirs to create a new type of comic book that wasn't a part of the same media, but still a comic book. And so they created The Matrix, and they say that these were their inspirations: Metropolis, Neuromancer, and Cyberpunk obviously was a huge thing. And I mean, a lot of it just was Japanese culture in general too, back then.
You know, there's so many different ways to look at these, because, you know, we've been using the words remake, remix, homage, cover.
I know, right?
There's so many different ways that we can approach this, and whether or not it's considered acceptable. For example, when you do a cover of a comic that's an homage, you're intentionally, you know, paying respect and honoring the cover that was done before, and you're doing it as close to the original as you can, maybe with a new character or a new set of characters. But the idea is you're paying respect to the previous, and maybe that's what Basha was doing with the Aretha Franklin song. I know No Doubt did a cover of Talk Talk's "It's My Life," and in my opinion, did it better. But you know, when
sorry,
go ahead, Blue.
But there's a lot of did it better. REM really didn't like doing covers because they said doing a cover well is just as hard as writing your own song. So if we're not going to do it well, we don't want to do it. And they improved Wire, of all things.
Okay.
But Superman was a cover. Not Firehouse. There's another one on Document, which is a communist album, but they have another cover on the Document album. But yeah, they improved a lot. One thing about remixes, though, in music terms, though, as long as I've got the microphone, I've noticed a shift in the language a long time ago, the 12-inch remix, etc., where at one point remix was just changing up the EQs, the placement, the panning, things like that, to try a different mix that way. And then somehow it turned into, everybody assumed that it meant sampled, jumbled, electronic dance extended, you know, that kind of thing. And the definition of just tweaking the mix, if you ever worked in a studio, which I've done some studio work, but tweaking the mix used to be considered a remixing, and the song might be no longer. It's not even rearranging the parts. But now it's, you know, splitting, removing half of the verses, splitting the remaining lyrics over, taking one line of the chorus, unless you're what's her name, that blonde singer, I can't remember her name now. Anyway, the one who wore the meat dress, where she's got a Lady Gaga, where her chorus is like 4 words over and over and over again. Anyway, but turning other songs into that kind of crap, and so it sort of lost. The idea of remixing lost a lot of what it could be, and I'm going to get back to film on this for Bandito. But if you go to The Cure, and it's a little, you can find it on YouTube, but it's a little bit obscure. I used to have their clear vinyl 12-inch of the song High, and if you flip it over, the B-side was a remix of the song Open, which was the first track of the Wish album, and it was labeled the Fix Mix, Fix. I don't think you can get that on CD, even though they put out almost everything else on CD. I think the Fix Mix of Open is still really hard to get, and it's a proper remix, just trying a different emphasis in all of the arrangement and tone and all that without jumbling the song all to hell. So that's really cool. So I wonder, in film, for the question of, is this good for entertainment? Can we look at a remake like Seven Samurai to Magnificent Seven as more of that proper remix of an EQ for emphasis, maybe background setting, one is Western, one is Japanese, as opposed to the remix where we take bits and pieces of multiple things that normally you'd call an influence, and just separate those two and talk about which one is good or not, for entertainment. A remake as opposed to a piecemeal of multiple other influences. Which remix may be good or bad for entertainment? Bandito?
Well, I think it comes down to um, the final product. So I think almost all things are allowable as long as the entertainment value ends up being there. And there's different ways to measure that. Usually, box office sales ends up being the de facto. But, we have a lot of cult followings for movies that don't do so well either. And I think when it comes to what pieces should be taken from something, ultimately it should be the most successful pieces, or somebody looking at something previously created and saying, I could do that better. And when it's when it comes to something like let's say Magnificent Seven, the problem with trying to put out the Seven Samurai during that time, which was a classic, is that nobody was watching samurai movies. So it wouldn't be able to, it might not even succeed in the box office if it was released at that time. If it was just done exactly the same, if it was just brought into color, if it was just made into the movie for that time, I think it's almost actually required that you translate it into a genre that is actually relevant of the time. And now I don't know if you could come out with the Magnificent Seven. Didn't they actually do a remake of the Magnificent Seven?
Yes.
Yeah. And how well did that do?
I'm not so sure. I think it was just passable.
Yeah. Had lots of star talent in it.
Just another summer movie or whatever season it came out.
Yeah. And it came and went, and I never heard anything about it. So but that's because nobody's watching Westerns now, right? So I don't think they're able to produce the exact same thing. However, if they had made Guardians of the Galaxy as a Magnificent Seven remake, that probably would have done exceedingly well. So and I say that simply because I don't think we could take Dances with Wolves right now and put it out today, and it would do so well. Although sorry, go for it.
I think that's an important distinction that we're making here, and that is a remake often falls flat because there is a certain bar or a standard to reach, and it's difficult. It's difficult to reach a new audience with a remake because probably it was made during a time like you're mentioning where that kind of movie was popular. However, if you're talking about a remix, and this sort of goes into your example with Guardians of the Galaxy, if they had tried to make that a remix of Seven Samurai and Magnificent Seven, it may have succeeded because this remix, this whole new setting, a whole new group of, we'll call them heroes. I think they're kind of anti-heroes, but regardless, that, like you said, it may have wildly succeeded because it took a influence or inspiration from the original. And that kind of also goes back to what you were saying about The Matrix, where the writers, directors, admitted, and it's not a bad thing that they admitted this, but they admitted the influences and inspirations they received or they took from those other movies, those previously made movies. So I think that so long as we make the distinction between remake and remix, one I think falls flat, the other could be successful.
Yeah, and I think remakes typically fall flat. We don't have very many gems that come from that. Like the Ghostbusters. They did a remake of the Ghostbusters. It fell flat. They did a remake of I can't even think of it now. But there was a time when we were inundated with remakes, and I think now we're actually kind of going through a time of remixes as well, because actually, I guess they're kind of continuing the stories now. Because I was just thinking of like with Willow and everything, they're actually moving forward with the old IPs. But the remakes, I think, is taking the best elements of something that worked previously and moving that, hopefully taking those and moving that forward into a relevant genre that people are wanting to see in a current time. So as far as entertainment goes, I feel like that's kind of keeping the best of whatever heritage those things fall from, and bringing that into a time where you can actually share it with current audiences, because it's hard to make it relevant for the next generation. It's difficult to show something old, and it kind of hurts sometimes when you realize it doesn't hold up. The story could still hold up, but the pacing doesn't, or the effects don't, kind of thing. So
well, you could certainly make a remix of an old movie with much better updated effects and segues, transitions. But some movies, they need to be careful because they are very dated in their portrayal of the times and the people in them. There are some movies that if you go back and look at, for example, the one that comes to mind right away for me is Breakfast at Tiffany's. That is considered a classic, and in many ways it is, but there are several scenes that are very insulting and racist. So you would not, in my opinion anyway, you would not want to remake that movie. I think you would have to remix it in order to reach a current audience, because today's audience wouldn't put up with that for a moment.
And I haven't seen Breakfast at Tiffany's, but I mean, I can take your word for it for sure. And there's also older stories that, I mean, lots of Shakespeare stuff, right? When Romeo and Juliet first came out with DiCaprio and I can't remember the girl's name, but that was taking that kind of romance and turning it into an audience that would be geared towards that in today's time. They wouldn't necessarily go see Shakespeare in the park, but they would they would go watch Romeo and Juliet, or 10 Things I Hate About You. I forget what movie that was actually taken from, or what Shakespeare play that was from, but I know I'm pretty sure that Heath Ledger's original movie, or maybe not original, but one of his earliest movies was 10 Things I Hate About You, and that was a Shakespeare play that was adapted into a high school culture. So the idea of taking these things and remixing them, I think actually becomes more and more required the further we get away from those old stories. And then, of course, you brought it up before, the Bible. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was, even if not directly taken from that, but through other philosophers, brought into the Matrix. And it's because these old stories, I mean, it's kind of like the 4-chord song, right? There's something that we've heard so many times that it resonates with us, or that we not identify, that's the wrong word, but that we want to continue to see being brought out, whether it's in entertainment or in our own lives or whatever. We want to see those success stories. And so that 4-chord song, everyone knows the 4-chord song,
right?
That the top 40, top 40 of any given year has a large percentage of the songs are all done with the same 4 chords.
Not even 12-bar blues, just 4 chords.
Exactly. Over the last
sometimes
50
2
years.
of the 4 chords are the same chord.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, it's something that we've heard so much that it's comfortable, and it is something that we want to continue to have with us, right? So we gravitate towards those things, which is, I mean, it's good in our entertainment. So Yeah.
Well, we call the show Incendiary, so I'm about to sort of share a hot take here. Yeah. Raised Roman Catholic, read the Bible beginning to end a number of times. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I started looking at mythology. I'm not going to say other mythology because I don't want to offend anybody, but I started looking at mythology, and I don't know how many times I came across what was nearly the same exact story as I read in the Bible. Like, it was like, so did somebody who had read the Bible create this mythology? And then it's like, well, no, because this mythology is older than Christianity. So that was a really, I don't know, that was a revelation to me. Not to make a pun, because Revelation is one of the books.
The one that's very near to Christianity geographically, strangely not in the Middle East, but because of how Christianity spread immediately, is the Mithras stuff. And it turns out, if go look, anyone in the audience who gets this, look up Zeitgeist debunked materials, and the materials you're going to find on that are extremely boring to listen to. You'll find somebody with more of a
What's that?
type voice than mine. No, am I here?
Yeah.
Can you hear? All right. Okay. Maybe Bandito's audio cut out on him.
Yeah, he might have.
Okay. So he roboted himself out, and he thinks that we're all missing. So anyway, but yeah, I think the best materials from them come from a guy named Chris White and somebody else who talks very monotone, not autistic, but just there's a lot of monotone want type speech. But anyway, Zeitgeist Debunked discusses a lot of those. What's interesting is people who pursue that tend to point at the Mithras myths from Rome, and it turns out they get them all wrong. The Mithras myths really didn't have a lot of anything similar to Christianity until after Christianity, but because some version of part of it existed before Christianity that bore no similarity, they reverse engineer and put all the later edits into the timeline as if they were the original. And it's kind of weird. But anyway, so yeah, if people are actually really interested in that stuff, look up Zeitgeist, which is the German word Zeitgeist debunked and disproven or stuff like that, and you'll find things on that. But yeah, it is interesting where the parallels are. That actually brings me to somewhere I wanted to go with the good or bad for entertainment is superficiality. I've noticed it's bad for entertainment when we get a remix or a remake that borrows only the superficial, because the filmmakers, because we're talking film and comics, the filmmakers or comic makers, they didn't understand the depth underneath that made the story a story connected to the human experience and made it worthwhile in the first place. So they find the superficial, think that that's the thing that the audience really wanted. And Hollywood does this all the time. Oh, Westerns sold this year, let's make 1 million Westerns. And then most of them are trash because they're superficial. They have no depth underneath them. And that's where remixing really can fail, or even remaking, is when you get only the superficial and not what was the core heart of the story underneath. Now, where the superficial can succeed is in satire, like Spaceballs, because you're taking the superficial thing and mocking it.
You're taking it to the nth degree. So that's all very intentional. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that a good example of what you're talking about is the Watchmen. And the Watchmen was a deconstructionist look at maybe the Justice League, if you will.
Yes.
And there were many who saw the success of the Watchmen and thought, oh, we can do that too. And then they took the superficial that you were referring to, and it missed the mark. I thought Watchmen did very, very well in what it did, but then the copycats of the Watchmen did not.
Right. And the superficial element that they took was deconstruction itself. Let's just deconstruct and dirty up things. That's it.
Pretty much.
Bandito, I hope you missed everything I said.
Well, you said it was boring, so I was just like, this is my cue just to take a quick
You dipped
nap.
out.
Yeah, no, I actually, you and I talked about this like a year ago, and you had brought some of that stuff up as well. So can't remember if it was Zeitgeist Debunked, but you did bring up something along that line. So
yeah. I've been through a lot of stuff. In fact, a lot of the problems we've seen in comics with the SJW takeover, et cetera, and whatnot. Man, I started going through this stuff in Protestant Christianity in the 90s. So it's like,
well, it's
this is
human nature,
all
right?
that.
Yeah.
And it's, well, especially the postmodern specific stuff that the SJW seem to carry forward, which by the way makes them fascists. They don't realize this, but when you take collectivism and merge it with postmodernism, that's the origin. That is fascism. That's where fascism came out of. So anyway, but moving on.
Lou trying to get us in trouble here.
I was
Oh my
gonna say,
goodness.
we are incendiary, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's wrangle this in before we get struck or canceled or some jazz.
Bandito already got struck once on this channel. I mean,
there we go. Oh my
or this show. I mean,
yeah, right. So yeah, in fact, that was why I didn't bring any audio clips with me. I had quite a few examples of remixes. I'm like, ooh, this could be fun. I'm like, well, wait a second. We don't want those buttons to be pressed to get us, this episode struck or something. But let's go ahead and talk. We've got 4 topics to talk about, but at a very high level. And that is, we've got 2 campaigns that we want to talk about that are closing soon. We have one that's in the sign-up phase, and then we've got a YouTube program that we want to touch on. So I think what we'll do to be progressive, if you will, is to start with the one that's in the sign-up phase that's coming soon. So Bandito, tell us about Black as Hell.
Okay, so Black as Hell, anyone who has known me or been around as long as I have in Comicsgate knows that I've been working on this for quite some time. It is I always try to go for whatever kind of human element I can find in a story. And the setting typically actually doesn't matter. I just need to find something that can be compelling and interesting. And everything's kind of been done out there. So zombies has been done, and we have, vampires and zombies and robots and whatever kind of cataclysm you want to bring up. There's somebody who's kind of done it. So I have this idea of my main character is running away from the mistakes that he made in his youth, and those mistakes have now caught up to him and want him back. And as he's trying to reconnect with his humanity, we have his mistakes coming behind him and trying to destroy those bridges that he's been making. And this is the setting that we find where these feral humans now are invading the city that he's in and leading to ultimately the conclusion of the mistakes that he made from his youth. And so I have this project itself. And sorry, I'm going to deviate a little bit from Black as Hell, but this project itself has been on hold a little bit simply because I didn't have an interior artist yet. And it's one of those things where I'm trying to get everything put together in order to, when I go to release it, there isn't going to be any waiting time after the campaign is closed. And with Black as Hell, I have another story coming out, if you wanted to even just scroll down a little bit there, and that is Legacy. And Legacy is the story of a woman who has found out that her own life is not being written by her. And in defiance of this and understanding the conclusion it's supposed to come to, she is now trying to create her own legacy that will be remembered after she's gone. Oh. And the these two stories run alongside each other. They don't actually really interact, but these two stories do take place during the same time. With Black as Hell, Black as Hell is three books over 3 campaigns that are going to be at least 80 pages long each. And with each campaign, I'm going to be adding another story in. Legacy is going to have book number 2 come out with the second campaign, and book number 3 come out with the third campaign. And in the second campaign, I have another book that will be coming out, a new title that will be coming out that will run alongside both of these others. And so as these campaigns are successful going forward, there's going to be a whole set of stories that by the time we get to the third one, it's actually going to end up being like 9 books on the third campaign. So for the first campaign, we're coming out with Black as Hell and Legacy. And this is to bring everybody solidly into this world. And so that'll be Black as Hell. Additionally, for those who are following along, I've been working behind the scenes with a couple of other artists and project managers, and I have 2 other projects that I'm working on. I can't really give the details out right now, but one is this fantastic telling of a Cthulhu-based, not Cthulhu-based, sorry. Why can't I think of the writer now? The
Is it Geiger?
No. I can't. The person who created Cthulhu and that whole Lovecraftian. Thank you. It's a Lovecraftian space opera, and it's just this amazing. The world that has been created is just this amazing thing. And I didn't create the world, but I get to kind of play in the sandbox a little bit. And King Leek, you're 100% right. It's a remix of this Cthulhu based space horror, and it's been really interesting to kind of see someone else coming up with this creative, going through this creative process and being able to work around their structure. And then I have another project. It's going to be really cool when I get to announce who these people are. Everyone knows them already. Everyone knows who these creators and producers are. And I'm working with another artist on another project where we're coming out with these short stories, and it's going to be this collected work of short stories that, as they become more and more popular, as people continue to enjoy that, it's just going to continue to build and build and build. And all the short stories end up wrapping into each other, but they're all individual lives of people working around some similar problems and some parallel problems. And the connection between all of it has just been really interesting to develop, like this very complex world that's actually in the past, but in the same kind of vein as Fallout, where everything kind of stopped during the Second World War and technology didn't really progress. The style of technology didn't really progress since then. We are basing ourselves around the Vietnam War. And after an alien invasion, the Earth is now moving forward in a post-space war, but from the 70s.
Whoa.
So here we are remixing a little bit of history, remixing some of these old themes, and it's just a really neat space to be in with it. And when we get to announce that, we're really close to being able to announce that project. And everyone knows the artists. They're going to be really excited to see this project come out. So there's lots of stuff coming on there. And then the other big thing is that my own YouTube channel is going to be starting up again. So
that's good to hear.
Yeah, I'm anticipating it being on the, hold on, I actually had a date.
As long as it's not Wednesdays at 10.
I anticipate it being on the 20th.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know there's a family day is it family day down in the US or is it just for Canada?
That's a Canadian thing.
Okay. So I don't know. Do you have any special holidays going that day? I seem to think you guys did, but maybe not. Anyway, the hope is from then on to have a very consistent programming. So
What day of the week is that?
That's a
Bandito?
Monday.
Okay, then yes, that's probably President's Day.
Okay, gotcha.
If it's a
Yeah,
Monday.
that's probably. I'm pretty sure that we made it Family Day based upon the U.S. already having a holiday there. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. You remixed the holiday to something.
Of course, it's what we do around here.
He's carrying the theme throughout. I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, folks, please sign up for Black as Hell. As you can tell, this man has put a lot of thought into it for a long time. It's going to be good. It really. I've already signed up, or I would put my name in there. It'll just tell me you did that already, dope.
By the way, we have a new guy in the chat. King Leak of Rock Hard Comics says, I gave him a definition of remixing is using bits and pieces a little bit more than an influence. And he says, like Jack the Ripper, Vampire Hunter, or just say mixing.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it is. I got so much stuff coming out this year. It's kind of all built up. It should have some stuff should have been coming out a year ago, and then, I mean, everything can get into production hell quite easily, and so I'm trying to get that all worked out before going live on a campaign, and then. So some things have caught up to current projects, and then future projects are now started early. So this year is going to be there's going to be so much coming out from this side of the Bandito schedule.
Now that the pipes are unclogged and things are moving.
Yeah, no kidding.
Creativity will flow.
It's funny how money tends to do all the unclogging.
This is true.
Yeah.
So although Jake isn't with us tonight, I mean, he's still with us. He's just not with us tonight. I do
that we know of.
Yeah, I wanted to show this. His campaign, he has recently said, is very close to closing. So this is one of those, don't miss out on this. Cobalt, Atlantis Thrashing was the first issue, and it's got this painterly style. The story, I got to be honest with you. Jake's my friend, so I'm a little biased, but it's one of the better stories I've read in this indie corner of our comic book universe. I think that Death Stalks us is going to pick up, as he's said before, right where Atlantis Thrashing left off, and we've got the main character, the detective that was following him, and this assassin, this Death Stalker. They all are on the last page of the first one, ready to fight. This one here picks up right there and takes the story forward. I believe there's a catch-up tier on this one if you need to get caught up with the first issue. As you can see, the Arroyas, I think, is the name of the artist who did this. But the art is a painterly style, like I said. I love the layouts of the pages. It's very unique, and it's going to be a great book. And again, it's closing soon. He's ready to wrap it up. He's got only a few more pages on their way in, so he'll be in fulfillment mode pretty soon here. So if you like the look of this, get in there and back it before he closes it down. It's currently in demand.
Cool. We talked about that a few weeks ago on my Monday night show.
The first issue?
Yeah.
What did you guys think of it?
There's a lot about it that we liked. Certain scenes didn't make sense, like the main villain explaining he's going to use these thugs who screwed up as bait, and then kills them instead of using them as bait, like immediately, like right there.
Whoops.
He's like, "Oh, don't worry, I have a plan. I'm going to use you as bait to get the hero to come after us." And then just like, by the way, nope, killed it. Like that didn't make any sense at all. And we think the villain is a wonderful opportunity for all kinds of things, but there are diner scenes, and the diner scenes were used to handle a fair amount of the load with exposition and showing character personality. And so it was like, well, that was a nice catch up, 3-page diner scene. We're a little, shall we say, gun shy on diner scenes because they've been used and abused horribly in the mainstream comics.
Yeah, they have.
That
recently.
now our tolerance for even 1 page of people eating is just really low. I think we have two. I think we're a little oversensitive about even just 1 page of people eating at this point. Like we could allow a little bit,
Yeah, but exposition. It's also it's difficult when you're trying to create a world and you're starting with world building. I know that Eddie Winkler, for example, with Sovereign Wolf, he and I were talking about a few pages in that one where the exposition was really heavy. Like I think it was pages 2 and 4. Were like a lot of explanation, but it was, well, first of all, the art was fantastic. So it was something great to look at while you were looking at all this exposition. But sometimes the explanation of the exposition is necessary so that you don't have 20 more pages. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So sometimes it's needed. And once you get past that, then the story can progress at the pace that the author prefers. We have another book that is in demand, and this one here is a little self-serving. It's Projectile Reptile, Dojo Comics. That's me. So, for full transparency. Also in demand and also soon to close. We are well over halfway done with, well, the script has been done for a long time, but the art and the coloring and the lettering, the artist is on a great pace. The colorist is only 2 pages behind him, and the letterer gets 5 or 6 pages at a time and gets them back to me the next day. And that's because it's Eric Weathers.
Oh, okay.
So, he is, not only is he a professional, but he's very fast, and he has no problem with edits, doesn't push back at all. He just gets them done and gets it right back to you. So very professional letterer. I'm glad he had the time to work on this project. This one has been shadow banned. I'm not going to whine about that much, but if you're trying to search for it, you'll have to, I think you'll have to go to my website to get the exact URL you're looking for. Or
just go to the chat here where Felix has posted the link.
Felix, the link master, thank you very much. As you can see, we're at 6,200. I'd love to get to 7,000. Of course I would, but there's a stretch goal tagged with that as well. So, and that stretch goal is 8 additional pages. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to take us, several more weeks to get those 8 pages done. Those 8 pages are already done. So if we get to that stretch goal, they'll just be slipped in there into the print file, and we'll be ready to rock.
Cool.
And one more thing we want to talk about before we wrap the stream, and that is the YouTube show that Blue Samurai Zero hosts. You mentioned it a couple times, and tell us about that. I'll share my screen and bring up.
Oh, yeah. I called it Midnight Mail because, one, that just sounds cool. And of course, one of my friends, Michael Odin, the guy who makes the Embrace comic as well as Elysian Fields, he has criticized very thoroughly the fact that we are not on at midnight. I think he needs to let it go. So anyway, it's called Midnight Mail, and it came from an idea that I did an unboxing video, which happened to be Neff's book Mavericks, MAVRICS, I think. Anyway, it's missing letters.
Yes.
And go down a bit, and you'll probably find. Oh no, wait, these are live streams. I'm sorry. Yep, you're outside my account now.
Okay.
That's just random stuff. So, whoops. Yeah, I did a posted video of unboxing Neff's stuff, and then I thought, I'm trying to get back into posting stuff on YouTube. I should just do a live stream. Does anyone want to live stream with me? And because Neff and I had just interacted when he said, "Hey, thanks for looking at my stuff," he said, "I will." And and then we had a gigantic conversation after the first stream. And I decided before the first stream, I'm going to do this every week. and just called it Midnight Mail, put a number on it, and we started going. And it's just a big accident. And it's kind of like an ongoing car crash, which is why that's my motif, as you see there in the top one listed on the screen capture.
Right.
We are the test dummies. What it has turned into is because people like unboxings and stuff. It's for fun. It's like Christmas. He and I each unbox at least one of something we've gotten in the mail in independent comics. I haven't done a good job of advertising it as open mic, but it is intended that if you've gotten something in some independent comics in the mail and you want to open them with us, ask me, I'll send you the link, you can join in. Or if you just opened one and it's already out, but you'd want to participate anyway, yeah, you can come on. If it's like 2 weeks old or less, then yeah, jump on and you can show one off to say, yeah, here's all the stuff that came with it. I just don't have the wrapper anymore. You're like, that's okay too. So it turned into that, and then we started talking about books. So we discuss a book that we've both bought and read, and right now, coincidentally, a lot of that's like mine and Tank Ferret's What's in the Bag streams. Yes, a little bit. It started as a one-off and became a regular. And then anyway, so we open mail a little bit. I am saving my mail. I have 8 packages that I'm just going through one at a time. So I have a show for the next 8 weeks. and then we talk about a book, and I try to keep it to about 90 minutes so that we can still have a life and be long enough for people to enjoy, or under 90 minutes. But we want to be long enough for people to enjoy and not too long that we don't try and take up people's whole evenings. So there it is.
I'm sorry if you mentioned it, but what night is that? Is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 9 p.m. Eastern time on Mondays.
Mondays. Okay.
And then in the chat here, by the way, because I mentioned the Zeitgeist stuff, I noticed the link that Felix posted. Awesome. So I looked at it, and it wasn't any of the ones I saw like in 2008, 2009 when that was going on. So I found a couple more links if people want to scroll the chat and look at the incredibly long, boring stuff I lived through. Please join my misery. So, Elliot Nesh's videos are now linked in our chat. But yeah, Monday night at 9 is when I do my show. We talk about a book. Neff is the intelligent one on this, and I think Mike Odin is going to be joining us a little bit more. But if you want to open something with us,
and Neff is still the intelligent
open mic. Yeah, he's still the intelligent one.
Sorry, Mike.
We do a lot of good cop, bad cop, and I'm the good cop.
Okay. All right. So I'm glad we had a chance to cover these items. We've got 2 almost closing. We've got a whole slew of things coming from Bandito, some YouTube channels to watch. Hopefully you all enjoyed the debate we had tonight. It's one of those things where, overall we agreed, but there's some great points that we made in counter to that being good for entertainment. Hope you had a great time. Thanks for watching. Thank you if you're going to watch on the replay. And we hope to see you next week.
Are you closing?